Hey guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana with another Top 10 video with our special guest, Coach Jonathan Pixley. Today we are on the Luca Nation Network. It should be a Tuesday when you see this. My guess is that means it's going to be the 18th, if that sounds right, of October, which means we're there, man. We're at the beginning of the NBA season. What better way to celebrate it than talking about the 10 greatest passers that ever lived in the history of the world. Jonathan, welcome to the show again. What's up?
Man, I see you got a fresh fade. There may be a sneaky guy on your list if you're going with it based on fade, based on haircuts. I'm a little concerned already. Okay, interesting.
You're concerned? Is it Mike Miller?
No, it's definitely not him. I don't think he ever passed the ball. But yeah.
That's before Mike Miller had the long, flowing, creepy-looking criminal hair, right?
Yeah, he was at Florida. He had the fade. That's for sure.
Yeah. Early Mike Miller.
And a lot of people don't. Kirilenko either. So
No, we won't see Andre. We won't see AK-47. But a lot of people don't remember Mike Miller was actually in the McDonald's dunk contest.
I did not remember that.
Yeah.
So remember that. Yeah.
All right. As always, we do the same. We talk about honorable mention, right? And so. The one rule, here's the rules, right? So we're talking about the 10 greatest passers of all time. We always have to make sure we're on the same page because we've had some discrepancies in the past and some uncertainties about the criteria that goes into these lists. So this is post-merger only. We're correct. So what is that, like 76 and more modern, okay?
76 on, yep.
76 on, okay. So I've got two honorable mentions.
Wow.
but we're going to be fast, okay? We're going to be fast. I know we take a long time on these. I did a pre-merger honorable mention, and I'm just going to name four names. Okay. Four names jumped out to me. Do you want to try to guess what those four names were for pre-merger honorable mention? Go ahead.
I would assume Bob Cousy and Oscar Robertson have to be on the list.
That's two.
Okay. I'm going to guess, is Jerry West on the list?
Jerry West did not make my list, although, I wouldn't kill it. I don't hate it, but no. Probably
Lenny Wilkins.
No. Lenny Wilkins racked up some assists. I did not know that, but doing my research, I did discover apparently Lenny Wilkins was a hellacious passer.
Wilt's on the list.
Wilt's on my list just because he had to be mentioned. He led the league because he said, "I'm going to lead the league," and so he led the league in 1967 four times. He averaged 9 times. Listen to this stat. Everybody pay close attention. I'm a big Wilt guy. 9 times Wilt Chamberlain as a 7-foot, 1, 2, 3, whatever you believe, as a 7-footer, he 9 times averaged over 4 assists a game in an era where bigs did not touch the ball that much and definitely didn't average 4 assists a game. Olajuwon never averaged 4 assists a game, and we consider him one of the best modern big men passers, or at least, before this new era of big men like the Jokic and, Sabonis and guys like that. So we consider Olajuwon an incredible big man passer. Shaq also. I mean, we both consider both of them really good passers. And I mean like decision-making passers, not flair or lobs or dropping dimes or anything like that. But Wilt did it 9 times, over 4 assists a game, which is pretty good. So that's why he's on my list. And then the one you're forgetting is probably top 3 all time as far as passing flair.
Well, you're counting Maravich, but I think he was pre-merger because I have him honorable mention as well.
You're right. You know what? That's not okay. Well, that's it. That's true. I'm thinking I'm a basketball card collector, so I'm thinking Maravich's rookie year, and I guess you're right. He spanned that merger. He kind of transitioned in that merger. Okay, so yeah, you're right. So for that reason, Maravich, consider him on my honorable mention when we get to your honorable mention. Let's whip through the honorable mention, but let's go real quick because we got to get to this top 10 list, and we got a lot of video footage to watch. Let's start with your honorable mention. Let's go one at a time each.
Well, real quick, before I move to this, Wilt, I have a Wilt rule for my list, and that is because, we're talking about the greatest passers ever, which does take into account flair, but not more heavily than just being a great passer. But I do take into account guys who, if they decided to lead the league in assists, they could probably very easily do it, right?
Yeah.
And so they have scores. So my honorable mention list is, I just mentioned Pete Maravich. I'm going to tell you one guy who probably should be on the list, but I refuse to have him on the list because of comments he recently made about Michael Jordan not being able to score in today's game, and that's Jason Williams. He won't be on the list. I won't allow him to be on the list.
Well, let's stay on Williams for a second. We're talking not the one who killed his chauffeur. We're talking about white chocolate, right? We're talking about white chocolate, Jason Williams. Yeah. He's all time on a Flair list. He would be number one for me all time.
I would agree, one or two, him or Magic.
One or two,
right? Yeah. But no, dude. Yeah, I just can't put him on the list. When you say stupid stuff like that, you got to be penalized for being a dumbass. So if they're going to keep Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame for gambling on his own team to win games, then I'm keeping Jason Williams off this list. Okay,
fair enough. Okay.
Chris Paul is not in my top 10, but he did make my honorable mention, and I took that into account that he's probably going to be number 2 all time by the time he's done in assists. I think. I have to look at that because he's about 1,500 behind Kidd, I think, right now overall.
Chris Paul is a little bit less than 1,200 behind Jason Kidd. He's going to catch him. He's going to catch him, barring some horrible injury. If he plays 2 more years, he probably should catch him.
He'll probably catch him. I went back because I wanted to see this because I'm taking into account a big part of my deal is who can make every single pass. Now, granted, he's an amazing passer, okay? But I didn't see, when I went back and watched, I didn't see a ton of flair with it either. He just gets to his spots and he's unbelievable, don't get me wrong. If people see this and go, you're an idiot for not having him in your top 10, I'm not going to argue that, but I just don't have him in my top 10. Mark Jackson is another guy that's not in my top 10, but he made my honorable mention.
Made mine, yeah.
Yeah, and he's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch.
He's top 5, and not a lot of people would realize he's 5th all time in career assists. Now he's going to get passed by a couple folks. Well, one person for sure is about to pass him. Possibly 2. Westbrook's got an outside chance of passing him, depending on how his career finishes up here at the end. But Mark Jackson, dude, I mean, for a long time he was 2, wasn't he? Yeah, so Kidd passed him, Paul passed him, Nash passed him. So for a long time there, Mark Jackson was number 2.
And was so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Especially in New York, whenever before he left New York. My next guy, and I'm not sure you put this guy anywhere on your list, is Orvis Sabonis.
He's on my honorable mention.
Yeah, I had to have him. He was, and hopefully Jason Rogers is watching this somewhere because he's a super undersized Orvis Sabonis, right?
Yeah, it's a good friend of ours that we play pickup ball with here in town who is shaped and passes like Arvydas Sabonis. Yes, even though he's very American. He's a little bit shorter. Yeah, he's a little shorter. So Sabonis, real quick on Sabonis, I have some notes on my honorable mention. Sabonis came over at age 31. Those of us, some people watching this video only know Domantas Sabonis. They don't even know who Arvydas Sabonis is. He came over at 31. There was for about a decade, it was claimed by many non-Americans that Sabonis was either the best or the second best player in the world compared to Jordan. So that was kind of thrown about. And back then, we didn't get to see the international guys. They didn't play in legitimate leagues over there. The only time we got to see Sabonis and Oscar Schmidt and guys like that was in the Olympics. And we didn't really get to see FIBA World Championships on TV. And Jordan and them wouldn't have played in that anyway. They just played in the Olympics. But so we didn't get to see the best of Sabonis, clearly. But what we did see, to me, it looked like Jokic. I mean, he had the ball and had ball mastery, sort of like Jokic as far as passing and ball fakes and things like that.
So my final honorable mention person was Michael Jordan, which I know people will go, what in the world are you talking about? People don't know this, probably, that in 1980, I think it was 87, 88, the last 12 games of the year, Doug Collins moved him to the point to see what would happen. He had 10 triple-doubles in those 12 games.
Yep.
Also, kind of the Wilt rule here, in the 91 finals against Magic, I think he led the series in assists. I looked it up. He averaged 11.2 assists for the series. It was kind of like that, kind of coupled with the following year when he made the threes against the Blazers when people were saying Drexler was a better three-point shooter. It was kind of like he was going, I'll show you I can do all of the stuff that everybody can do.
Everything. He could do everything, yeah.
And he could have led the league in assists, I feel like, if he'd have decided to not score 30.
Well, unquestionably. If he wanted to, for sure. Although he played during the same era as Stockton for a lot of those years, so it would have been something to talk about. Yeah.
Really good point. Yeah, you're right.
There's a couple of guys that, just like Jordan froze out a lot of dudes that could have led the league in scoring,
Yeah.
Stockton throws out guys on our list that we're about to talk about, guys that could have won. Mark Jackson, namely, for God's sakes, throws him out, and a couple other guys, a couple other names will get on the list. The only other guy this guy's on my honorable mention, I just feel he needs to be mentioned. He's not really in the honorable mention as greatest passers of all time, but it's a single game assist record holder, Scott Skiles. I've just got him on here because he dropped 30 in one game. That's a lot of assists. Stockton, I think, is second with 28, and he's got a couple other games in the 20s. And we've seen games in the 20s, but no one's ever hit 30. Skiles did, but shockingly, he never averaged 10 assists in a single season in his entire career, and he was a pass-first point guard. So I've just got him on here just to mention him. I've also got on here Mugsy Bogues just because I think he deserves some credit and some attention. Again, not that he's like just outside my top 10. I'm not saying that, but people, when you hear the word Mugsy Bogues, he's usually like the butt of a joke. Like my 9-year-old son knows who Mugsy Bogues is, right? And he knows who Manute Bol is because of the funny picture we've seen. And so we just know he's a little 5'3", 130-pound guy, which is smaller than my daughter who's a junior in high school.
Right.
But, he was legit, man. I mean, Mugsy was more than just a tiny dude. He averaged 7.6 career assists per game, and he averaged 10 or more assists twice at 5'3", 136 pounds. So I just wanted to throw Mugsy's name out there. Also a steals artist as well. So steals and assists. All right, I've got 4 more quick ones. Jason Williams, who you didn't want to talk about, he's my number 1 all-time Flair because when he came in the league, it was an epiphany. It was a revolution. People wanted to, the elbow pass, the no-look passes, the spin passes. He could do anything and everything, left hand, both hand. He was also might have been one of the greatest ball handlers that ever lived as well. Unfortunately, I don't think he gave a shit about getting better or long-term career. I don't get the impression he took very good care of his body during or in the off season. He did like to hoop, and I figured he would have been a pretty fun guy to watch in a pickup game. He never averaged 9 assists in a single season in 13 seasons. So I think a lot of people won't remember that, and they're going to say, Jason Williams. Man, he's just so far behind numbers-wise that, despite the fact that he's the flashiest passer of all time, he didn't make my list. I've got Jokic on here just because he needs to be mentioned. If we were doing this in 2029, he might make the top 10. That's how good a big man passer he is. I don't know that, but right now he's had 4 straight 7+ assist seasons. For a 7-foot guy. That's a lot. He's 26 years old. Westbrook, I've got in my honorable mention. You might have him in your top 10. From a credential standpoint, he is pretty damn close to deserving. He's 11th all-time in career assists, and he is 10th all-time in assists per game career. So he's right on that cusp, but a lot of people, Jonathan, wouldn't – we think triple-double, and then we think scoring machine, and then we think dunker. You passing is probably the 4th thing that and horrible shooter. Passing is probably the 5th thing that you think of when you think of Russell Westbrook. But honorable mention for me. Did he make your 10?
No, he didn't. And I'll tell you why, because I went back and looked, and in fact, Harden would have been ahead of him if I was choosing one of the two. Because if you go back and look, Westbrook never averaged those big assist numbers. I think maybe 8-ish whenever he had winning teams. Whenever he wasn't, super high usage guy. So I think a lot of it's empty stats, man. I really do. I mean, it's amazing. It's incredible what he did. There's no question. But also, and I'm probably nitpicking a lot here, but he had like 3 years in a row where he was at like 10.2, and so he did. I just get that feeling where it was like, I just got to get that 10 assists just so I can have the triple double. I
agree.
So,
but he did.
Yeah, he did. No. Don't
I know. Look, I get it. The empty stat argument's there for sure. I get all that. And that's why he's an honorable mention. I don't think he's one of the 10 best passers of all time. And here's the thing, and I got one more. Kevin Johnson. I don't know if he made your 10.
He didn't.
Okay.
He's a great passer, though.
He's really close for me. 9.1 career assists per game, which is 6th all time.
Wow. I didn't
know
know
that. If you look at his prime years, the dude was doing it, and he was putting up a lot more points per game than Stockton during that era. They pretty much overlapped. He was one of my favorite players growing up. When we played video games, I always took the Suns. I don't know if you remember that. We were kids. I always liked to take Kevin Johnson. But what's funny is, like we were talking about Jordan freezing people out for 10 scoring titles, Kevin Johnson never led the league in assists because he overlapped perfectly with Stockton. But 4 times he averaged 10 or more assists, which is you're starting to get into the same type of credentials as Jason Kidd and Gary Payton and some of these other guys that we're about to talk about. So I thought Kevin Johnson deserved a mention as well. So that's it for my honorable mention. Let's be real clear about this again. This list is malleable, right? This list is going to be very subject to debate, not just between me and you, but people watching, because we agreed you need to take into account how flashy, how much flair, the swag, the style, the no-look passes, lobs, left hand, right hand, between the legs. That is all taken into account. But I did not weight that more than I did actual credentials, assists per game, career assists, longevity, consistency. But it does matter, and it alters the order. But for me, what they actually accomplished on paper, for me, it was probably 80-20 is the way I look at it probably. I don't know how you weighted it.
The assists per game did not weigh in nearly as heavily for me as you. It weighed in, but again, to me, I took the skill of passing, just that. And I said, who are the greatest passers ever? And in order to fill that skill, you have to be able to make the impossible pass, right? You have to be able to make the pass that nobody sees. Court vision, flash, all that stuff I think plays into it. And so my list is going to be different than yours because of that. Now look, we're probably going to have a lot of the same names on there.
Yeah.
But the order of it is going to be different just because of that alone. But hey, let's see where we're at. I think we both agreed that Kobe did not make the honorable mention or the top 10, so I wouldn't put him on there.
He didn't, but we got to stop bagging on Kobe. We're going to make too many enemies in this deal. We got to grow it. We got to grow it. We will do tops. Yeah, he's going to make a lot of top 10 lists too, though. So, all right. So, by the way, it just gave me an idea. Top 10 people that you would least like defending you in an NBA game. That would be a good video. We're going to do that video for sure, okay? My mind's already spinning. There's only one person that we've mentioned. We mentioned probably 10 or 12 people in this honorable mention. Only one of them has been in either one of our top 10s, I think. None of my honorable mention were in your top 10.
Chris Paul was in your top 10, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, we're going to get to it. But I just want to make sure I didn't mention any honorable mention that's in your top 10, correct?
There is one.
Oh, there is one. Okay. Well, let's go. Let's go then. Let's start on my list like we always do.
Yep.
And watch how fast this is. I'm not going to show any video of this guy. I'm not going to talk in superlatives or give him any credit for anything that he did. The most credit he's going to get from me is that he's in my top 10 list and he's number 10. Do I even need to say his name?
No, because he's low on my list as well. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It will be Isaiah Thomas.
That's right. So Isaiah Thomas, he makes my top 10 list. All right, I lied. I'll say a little bit about the guy. I don't like him. I don't like him the way I don't like him as a player. I don't like him as a human being. I don't like what he said. I always try to stay positive, but this is like one of the very few people I just do not care for, just based on some of the things he said, the Bird situation, the Jordan freeze out. There's a long list of reasons not to like Isaiah Thomas. If you're a young person watching this video and you think I'm just some old, weird, crotchety dude, just go Google him. You'll figure out why. A lot of other NBA players, a lot of his peers during the era could not stand the dude. So I don't like him, but 9.3 assists per game is a lot. That puts him 5th all time. 13.9 assists per game season, which was, he did that before Stockton. Then he had 4 seasons over 10, and he's a top 10 career all-time assist guy. So he's got, for that reason, he's got to be on the list. And he had a little bit of flair. His ball handling had probably a little bit more flair than his passing did, and his ability to score as a little tiny guy, because he was a little guy. What was he, 6 feet tall, Jonathan?
6'1", maybe.
6.5, 6'1", yeah, something like that. So I got Isaiah 10. Do you have Isaiah on your list?
I do have Isaiah on my list, and I'll get to that whenever I get to it. But he, to me, is the most underrated part about him was the gauntlet he had to run through to win 2 NBA titles. It could be argued that his was the toughest of all the superstars because of Magic, Bird, Jordan, all those things.
Yeah.
But, the way that they played it, you're right, just a turn off. Plus, I think he's fake as hell anyhow.
I just want to look. We need to take a second here. I want to tell you how much I am impressed by how you could put your biases aside, because I've already got the vibe. You put him much higher than 10th.
No.
Okay. All right, we're going to get to it then. Okay, go ahead. Who's number 10 on your list?
I had Jokic 10th, and I have Jokic 10th because I feel like he can
4 seasons.
Yeah, what? It's just that. He can make every pass.
He can.
He literally makes every. But to me, it's more than that. He's just messing around out there. It's almost like he's like, let me see if this gets through, and he flings a bounce pass cross court. You know, but he sees everything, and he just seems to. And he's got flair. Ironically, I mean, for a big, goofy-looking white dude, he's got flair, and he's freaking.
He does.
He makes every pass, man. So I had him 10th for sure, and I agree with you. By 2029, he may be 5th. You know, who knows?
Yeah, I agree with you. He already 4 years. Is he in the greatest passing big man conversation of all time? I mean, you wanted to see a full Bill Walton career, but we didn't see it, so he's out, right? His college career.
Jokic is it. He's it right now.
He is it. You're number one ever. Better than Arvidas for sure.
We didn't see enough.
Yeah, we didn't see enough, and we only saw him when he was 32. You know.
Right. Yeah, I think he's it, man.
I think he might be it too. Or is there anybody that we're possibly forgetting as a 7-1 passer? And I'm not talking about not that Giannis would be, but I'm not talking about guys like Durant and crap. Not that they would be, but
like Vlade Divac,
true bigs.
Passer, but not like this dude. I mean, this guy's he's got guard passing skills. I mean, he's ridiculous. You know?
He is elite. He's elite.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jokic 10 for you, Isaiah 10 for me. Number 9, I'm concerned that I don't know how you could have him higher. I've got Jason Kidd, number 9, Jonathan, and I would have thought he would be much higher on my list. He's number 8 all time in assists per game. He is number 2 all time in assists, which we've talked about. He could quite possibly get caught by 2 people that are active right now, Chris Paul and LeBron, just depending on how their careers end up and health and all that stuff. He is, 8.7 assists per game. When you start pushing that 9 assists per game, you become elite, right? So if you're 9 assists per game, you're top 7 of all time. Here's a little tidbit. John Wall is over 9 assists per game. A lot of people don't know that. Obviously, that'll go down, of course, as, this year for the Clippers, it'll go below 9 because there's no way he's going to average. I don't think he's going to average 9 assists. So when you haven't seen the downside of people's careers, those numbers per game, tend to come down. He was a 5 times assist leader. He was in my opinion, probably top 5 fastest people end to end with a basketball. There's a lot of names. That could be another whole video. Yeah. There's a lot of people that could be in that conversation. Westbrook's in that conversation. There's a lot of guys in that conversation. LeBron's probably in that conversation. But Jason Kidd, to me, was the one point guard I remember just being shot out of a cannon, direct line, getting to the other end of the floor, making a decision. Could throw the lobs, could pass left hand, could pass right hand. He pushed 10.0 assists per game in a very, very slow-paced era. It was much more difficult to get assists during that era, that mugging, prison ball era where you could just put hands on people and hold and clutch, and it was just tough to get assists in that era.
He didn't. He's a little higher on my list than that. He's not way up, but he's up there because I took that into account, what you just said. I also took into account the teams that he played with didn't have great shooters, unlike a couple of the other guys that'll be on this list. And I took into account the flair and the fact that I'm not sure, outside of who I'm assuming is probably both of our number ones, I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody better in transition, making passes, every kind of pass. So he's a little higher for me on the list, but
he would be he would be he'd be 2 or 3 on my all-time, just running a fast break and get it down there, make the right decision, make any pass you want him to make. He would be 2 or 3 on my list of transition passers. That's correct. That's where he'd be.
So my number 9 was Isaiah. So I had him at 9. So we don't need to talk about him. We can go ahead and skip on to 8.
Skip. Number 8 for me. This was tough. And I changed this. I made this one I did put time into because I was wrestling with some of this stuff. I was wrestling with credentials versus flair versus who was like better in their prime. Some people have just accumulated numbers because they played forever. It was very difficult to kind of weight those different factors. But number 8 on my list is Rajon Rondo. He is in my top 10 for sure, possibly top 5 or 6 all-time flair passers.
He was number 8 for me as well.
He what?
He was number 8 for me as well.
He's number 8 for you as well. And again, just to reiterate, we don't ever share our list before we do these videos because we want it to be real, right? We want it to be like we're riding a car on the way to an AAU tournament, just bullshitting, throwing names out. 14th all time in assists. So there he lags some of these other guys. 7.9 career, but you got to remember he had 4 or 5 trash seasons, and he's going to have another one, if he's still playing. I don't even know if he's still playing. He might not even be in the league anymore, but towards the end of your career, those numbers kind of come down. He had an average 11 or more assists 4 times in his career, led the NBA 3 times. So he's not quite there from a credentials and a accumulated stat standpoint as Jason Kidd. And Jason Kidd had some flair too now, don't get me wrong, but Rondo was – man. Like for a while there, it was, you were choosing who's the best point guard in the world, Chris Paul, Darren Williams, Rondo.
Yep.
That was the thing. And then, Chris Paul was a little bit of both. Rondo was only pass. And then Darren Williams was a little bit more scoring and then a little bit less passing. But it was like those 3 were like battling out for that title, Rondo's 8 on your list, same reasons?
Yeah. And he was always better in the playoffs than he was the regular season. Just amazing.
Which is why his nickname is Playoff Rondo.
Exactly. And he has huge hands, huge, right? So he makes things easily with one hand. I remember the one ball that I saw when he drove into the lane and he had it in his left hand and he whirled around in the air and slung it out to a 3-pointer for Ray Allen. It was like, is this the one? No, it's not even that one. This one happened at home. That was ridiculous right there.
Hold on, that's not it?
No, He had one at home where he threw with his left hand over his shoulder. But yeah, that's ridiculous right there. So, and he is, according to guys, I have talked to that are currently in the league, he is literally a basketball genius.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
So, which has gotten him in trouble with coaches because he thinks he's smarter than the coaches he plays for. He's probably right.
Look, Jonathan, that's probably a lot of the reason why people said he had attitude problems when he was a younger player, because he was playing for coaches and he might have known basketball better. That's the past you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, who does that?
You see over the shoulder drop downs for dunks. You don't see over the shoulder kickouts from one side of the lane all the way to the standing 3-point line.
I want you to see Ray Allen's hands. Is it where you go back at all?
To see Ray Allen's hands?
One more time. I want you to watch Ray Allen's hands when the ball gets to him. Never moves them. I mean, literally it's right in his number.
Yeah, he just split the 2 and the 0 on Ray Allen's jersey. Look at Big Baby, Baton Rouge's finest.
Patent glass, man. Patent glass.
Patent glass with 2 hands.
Yeah.
That's not that special.
No, I'm with you. I love this game. I actually contemplated pushing him up higher. But
so here's the Rondo move, Jonathan, right? So it's you're something when you have a move named after you. So when players do this now, this fake wraparound behind the back, and then either pass it on the front or keep it and shoot a layup, they call that the Rondo.
Yeah.
So they say you got Rondoed, or I Rondoed somebody, or something like that. So he's got a move named after him, sort of like Sham God. He's got the Sham God named after him. So that's Rondo on our list. He's number 8 on both of our lists. What a coincidence. Okay, let's move on. Who is number? I guess it's on me then. Luca Doncic is number 7 on my list, and so he's in a similar situation to Jokic, but I've seen enough. I've seen enough, and on the flair, he's one of the guys that I would probably put in my top 5 all time on flair.
Yeah,
probably 4 or 5, something like that. I didn't realize until I watched some more of his videos, and I've got him queued up. So let's let Luca do his thing while I. Sorry, let me. Yeah. So just eyes in the back of his head. It checks every box from a flair standpoint. He is 6'8", so he sees everything, playing the point guard position. He's got a ball mastery like LeBron and Harden, to where he's got this aggro, and he draws all the attention. So he's like so ball dominant, and he's like a puppet master. Like he dictates every single possession, whether it's scoring, getting fouled, or getting his teammates open, because by anybody's accounts, his teammates are subpar compared to some of these other great ones. Even compared to LeBron's teammates right now, I would think that the Mavericks, they just don't have what Harden has around him or what LeBron has around him or some of these other great point guards. What else about him? 8.0 assists per game, not the craziest numbers. But then again, you got to realize the guy's also got to score 28, 29, 30 a game. So his usage rate is preposterous. And like I said, his aggro, meaning the attention, the fact that he Velcros everybody's eyes to him, is everything. He's obviously a master of the pick and roll. He's also a master of running the break. And so he can throw every type of pass with both hands. Lobs like you're seeing right there too. I think that's Willie Cauley-Stein. and or he can run the pick and roll as an absolute master. I've never seen anybody better, Jonathan. He's not doing it there, but running the pick and roll, getting someone on his hip, and then just keeping them there forever, and then like waiting out that decision, right? Waiting out that decision as you inch closer to the goal. So he is the pick and roll master, in my opinion, right now in the league. Maybe one of the best we've ever seen.
He's higher on my list, and I have him because, again, I think I know he's one of two people in the world who can literally make every single pass there is to be made. He does it with flair also. I would argue that inarguably he's the greatest pick and roll player ever. Now, I know everybody goes Stockton Malone, but when you take into account, you said Luca, for example, hovers around 8 assists. I think he's been in that 9 range, maybe once or twice. He's on a bad team, man. I don't care what people say. The Mavericks.
I'm tired of hearing about it. Yeah.
I'm so tired. He doesn't have – when Jalen Brunson's your second best player, and I think he's a good NBA player, but come on. Are you kidding me? He's getting 8.5, 9 assists to these dudes? Are you serious?
Jonathan, who's his second best player now? Christian Wood? Tim Hardaway Jr.? I don't know. You tell me.
Just think about what those dudes did before they got to Luca. That's the thing you got to keep in mind. Now, Christian Wood we'll find out this year, but you get my point. He's got dudes who are playing significant minutes in playoff games who would not do that for any other team in the league. Nobody. Yeah, I'm with you.
Look, here's the deal. Like Christian Wood played on the Rockets last year. I don't even think he was their second best player, and they were horrible.
I agree.
That's just me, right? I agree. I don't think there's many teams in the NBA where Christian Wood would be the second best player, or Tim Hardaway for that matter. I think he's just a guy, right? He's like a fringe starter guy. Yeah. Okay, so that was my number 7. Who's number 7 on your list?
Kid was 7 for me. So
Kid was 7 for you. All right, we can move on then. All right. So number 6 on my list is, and I switched this literally minutes before we started. Okay, I switched this minutes before we started. Chris Paul is number 6 on my list. Let me pull him up so we can watch the great Chris Paul operate. Sorry, let me kill this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so Chris Paul's he's top. I've got him probably top 10 flair, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10. He's not boring by any stretch. He's also, without question, a pick and roll master. Also fantastic in transition. It's tough for him to compete with guys like Luca as a little guy, but he's been doing it so long and so much more consistently. That's why I have him higher on my list. It's just duration, right? And durability and consistency and just putting it up. And that's why we're going to talk about some of these guys that we're about to get to. They've just done it for so long. So Nash is top 5 to 10 flair, 8.5 career assists per game. He's won the I'm talking about Chris Paul. I've got him as the best lob thrower. And now Luca could push for that, but right now I've got Chris Paul as my best lob thrower.
I agree.
And sometimes even when he throws a bad lob, he's got DeAndre Jordan or Blake Griffin to make it look better. It actually looks better than a good lob would have looked, right? Yeah. Chris Paul's 3rd all time, man. With like we talked about, an outside chance of catching Kid for 2nd. 9.5 career assists per game is monstrous. That makes him 4th all time. So not just durability and
I thought you said duration. 8.5. I thought you said 8.5.
I was saying I was talking about Nash. I switched him and I got sidetracked. Sorry, that little spoiler alert there. Chris Paul's had 10 plus assists 7 times. That's a lot, and so for that reason, I've got him ahead of Luca because Luca's had 8 4 times.
Chris Paul, really?
Chris Paul has averaged 10 plus assists 7 times in his career. He led the NBA 5 times, and he led the NBA last season at age 26 with 10.8.
I knew that.
I didn't realize that he led the NBA over 10 assists a game last year, which I kind of thought in comparison to prior years was kind of a down year for him and the Suns. Yeah. Led the NBA, man. So that I've got Chris Paul here, man. Some of the am I watching? Is this Doncic again? Why am I watching Doncic again?
Yeah, why not? Chris Paul should have been in my top 10. I probably should have kicked Isaiah out. If I had to go back and do it again, I'd kick Isaiah out and put Chris Paul in. But he still wouldn't be higher than 8 or 9 for me, though. Nonetheless.
Really? Jonathan, he's 3rd all time.
I know, but remember the criteria I'm taking into account. When you take into account these past first point guards, which granted, Chris Paul had years where he averaged 19, 20, whatever. He's kind of the most balanced version of that, right? But I just think that I don't know. How many times did he lead the league in assists? You said 5?
7. He averaged 10 assists 7 times. He led the league 5. Jonathan, he's got to be in your top 10.
Yeah, he has to be.
Okay.
Right. No. I'm just trying to figure out how high I would put him. He definitely needs to be in my 10. I'm just trying to figure out how high I'd put him. Nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay. I might have him too high. I have him at 6, man. I have him at 6. That's where I've got him. So anyway, who's your 6?
I had Nash at 6.
Okay, well, let's talk about Nash. I got Nash pulled up because I'll let you know Nash is my 5.
Okay.
And so we've got Nash's top 5 according to NBA.com. This is Nash's top. Oops, I just screwed that up. Sorry. Let me go back. There we go. So we start off obviously with the soccer stuff from the dunk contest. We've seen that. Hang on. I had Nash's. I had it at number 5. Let me go find it. Here we go. We'll just let it run. All right. Tell me about Nash, Jonathan.
So, played, I think, benefited from the pace and space style that they played. But nonetheless, I mean, watch some of these passes he makes. He saw everything. He was a genius. The irony in his MVP years is the 2 years after he won MVP, his statistically was much better.
Yeah.
I just looked this up a little while ago. He had a year where he was like 18-8, 11-6 on like 53, 45, 90. I mean, something crazy, right? And he didn't win MVP that year, but he was one of, if not the most gifted hand-eye coordination guy I've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that came with, dude would dribble tennis balls and golf balls whenever he was in college around campus and things like that. But yeah, amazing passer for sure. And you could argue he could be in the top 5. I mean, he's 3rd all time right now in assists. Is that correct? He is
4th. Chris Paul just got him. Yeah, Chris Paul just got him. He's 4th. His career is obviously done. It is without any hesitation. I can say LeBron's going to catch him, barring something horrible happening. He'll catch him this year, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is also frightening to talk about. But yeah, I mean, staying on Nash because he's my number 5. So staying on Nash, he just like Chris Paul, they've each got 5, right? They've each got 5 assist leaders. So that made them even. But the MVPs put him over the top for me. And then I thought Nash had a little bit more flair to it than Chris Paul did. He had 7 10-plus assists per game seasons, just like Chris Paul. Like they're similar in so many ways. They both led the league 5 times. They both had 7 10-plus assist seasons. He's right there. They're right next to each other. On the all-time assists, they're 3rd and 4th. On the assists per game, they are 4th and 9th, separated by 1 assist per game. So a lot of similarities between those two. I kind of just chose Nash because I thought he had a little bit more flair, just to be quite honest with you. So that's why I kind of had him a little bit higher. All right, so we're on to – that was your number 5, yeah?
No, that was my number 6. So 5 was Nash for you. So 5 for me was Luca. I had Luca 5. So
I accidentally played Luca's highlights twice, so everybody's gotten their fill of Luca. And it's no secret that we're both very passionate fans of Luca. Luca is very special, to say the least. This is where I think our lists might diverge even more. My number 4 is Larry Bird. This is hard. I know you're going to have LeBron behind Bird for you.
No.
You got Bird 4 too. Okay. I thought maybe you would put just because I know how you feel about Bird too, and that era, just generally speaking. So let's watch some Bird. A lot of people, may not understand just how special he was as a passer.
Unbelievable.
Sees a lot of the same stuff that Luca Doncic sees, just didn't have the ball in his hands as much, playing that small forward, power forward, sometimes position. Right. That pass right there is considered one of his greatest. I don't know about that. What do you?
I don't know either.
I mean, there's one. The theory behind that pass was phenomenal, but did he really mean to throw a bounce pass? I don't know.
I can't imagine. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but he did some crazy stuff with the ball, man. He really did. And I remember him telling the story about how he knew when he was entering the ball to the post, he could throw it anywhere to McHale because he'd catch it. But in order for Robert Parrish to catch it, he had to throw it right at his nose, right?
Yeah.
So he made sure he caught it. But this dude, man, good night.
Yeah.
And the thing about Bird that people don't realize, because, of this era, they look at it back and they go, oh, they'd kill him in today's league and this and that. He was not athletic, of course, okay? But he wasn't like an invalid. You know what I'm saying? And his passing and shooting skills were so good. Can you imagine him at the floor today?
Well, look, I mean, we're looking at him and we're like, well, he's not explosive like Dominique. Yeah, but he was probably 6'10". I mean, he was listed 6'9", but I've heard 6'10". Right. I mean, he still moves pretty damn well for a 6'10" guy. I mean, compare the way he moves to the way Dirk moves. He moves better than Dirk.
Killing Dominique, by the way.
Yeah, and he destroyed Dominique. Of course, he destroyed Dominique. Now he had a better team and all that, but he also just destroyed him. Like, other than the 2 times, he almost lost his life when Dominique dunked on his brain. But Bird's my number 4. He's top 5 for me in flair. I know I've named like 7 players that are top 5 in flair, but Bird's top 5 in flair. Okay. 6.3 career assists per game, so that's where he's a little bit lacking. But again, back then the point guard was the point guard, man. It was different than it is now, where you got point forwards and point centers like Jokic. It just wasn't the same. The game was different. So 6.3 assists per game for him from the forward position. I think I don't consider LeBron a forward. Do you?
No, he's a point guard.
Okay, so I consider Bird the greatest passing forward of all time.
For sure. Yes, agreed. 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm with you on that. So we can go ahead and move on, because he's a dude who could have led the league in assists. Well, I say that. Then he'd have had to outdo Magic. So or Stockton,
who was trying to lead the league in assists, and Stockton, who was leading the league in assists. You're right. I don't know if he could have, but he was a victim of era, not a victim of not being good enough to do it. So, okay, Bird was my 4. Who's your 4?
That was who it was. Remember, I said.
Oh, that's right. We said Bird's your 4. Yeah. Wow. What's wrong with my memory?
Yep.
Okay, so we're on to number 3, 2, and 1. I wonder if we're going to be perfectly paired up here. I think we are. I'm guessing we are. I don't think we are, because I think, and I'll be honest with you, I don't hate that we're not, because I think I could flip flop 2 and 3. I've got LeBron 3. Do you have LeBron 3 or 2?
That's who I have. I have
LeBron 3.
It was hard. It was hard for me too, because I feel like the difference between him and Bird, for example, at 3 and 4 was LeBron is really a point guard, right? And he can get any pass he needs to get to. Plus, it's just so athletic and so physically strong. But I think that the deal with LeBron is there was one year where he was like, okay, our first year that we got a chance to win a title with the Lakers, I'm going to lead the league in assists. And he averaged 10.5. So he could do it, I think, whenever he wanted to. The Westbrook triple-double thing, which, again, is still amazing. I'm not going to downplay that, okay? If LeBron cared more about that than winning, LeBron could have averaged a triple-double 10 different years.
10 times in a row,
in
my opinion.
Right.
He's again, we don't keep, we know who finished their career, on the all-time assists, all-time scoring, and we're talking about LeBron catching Kareem. When's he going to catch Kareem? He's, greatest scorer of all time. Man, he's 7th in assists, and he's got a really good chance to get to 3rd. Guaranteed 4th. Almost guaranteed 4th. Yep. A good chance to get to 3rd. The issue is he's chasing another active player with a 900 assist head start. So Chris Paul's 10,977, and LeBron is 10,045. So he's about 932 behind, which is what? A little over a season, maybe 100 games behind, 115, let's say, games behind Chris Paul. I don't know. It just comes down to which one plays the longest, because I think both of them are going to be trying to catch Jason Kidd, who's about 1,200. He's about 2,000 ahead of LeBron. LeBron needs 210 assist games.
And ultimately, at the end of his career, okay, let's just say he doesn't win 2 more titles or whatever it is he's got to do, right? The argument would be for him as the greatest player ever that statistically nobody compares. It's not even close. And you also would take into account like per game averages, right? Because like you said earlier, some guys, their numbers come down, their per game averages come down as the longer that they play. His have not.
No, they're not. And Jonathan, Chris Paul's are not. He averaged 10.8 last year.
I know. And the issue with LeBron, like people don't realize, Tim Duncan, I think I'm right about this. His career averages ended up being like 18 and 11, which is, if I told you he's unquestionably the greatest power forward ever, and you didn't know anything about basketball, and I told you those numbers, you're like, what are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to have that argument with LeBron. And so I think statistically at the end, is it just so overwhelming that you consider him the greatest ever? I'm not. I mean, it's not going to be that. He's got to win 2 more titles to me still. But it is amazing to see what he's doing. And I believe he could have led the league in assists every year that he entered it if he decided to when he came in. And it would have been the easiest for him of anybody because he was averaging 7-8 assists with terrible Cavs teams at the beginning.
Yeah.
Terrible, you know?
Yeah. To get a little bit off topic, is it fair to say for the next, we may be long gone, but for the next 30, 40 years, LeBron versus Jordan, choose one, is going to be a topic of conversation, regardless of where you and I stand on that. We both know where we are on that. And we have, everybody weights criteria differently. Rings are worth this, rings are worth that, whatever, right? Everybody's got their own opinion. But is it fair to say that conversation is not going away as long as you and me are on this earth?
Yes, because here's the deal. The Jordan fanatics are going to go 6-0, 6-0, 6-0, took years away from baseball, whatever. LeBron's people, all they have to do is, here's his resume. And it's this long, right? I can't even do it on the screen. Like all of the accolades that he will have achieved at that point in time. You realize there's never going to be another, I can't imagine, all-time leading scorer who's also top 5 in assists ever. I mean, it's unheard of, right? So yeah, I think it'll be around as long as we're alive, for sure, no doubt.
Yeah, there's no way to escape that. Like that can't be undone. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're not going to be able to undo that. Like Brady has eliminated that Peyton Manning argument or whatever, Joe Montana or whatever argument you want to make. I don't see any way we escape this forever. We're going to have to hear about this.
The other thing is, and people don't really talk about this. When we were younger, nobody talked about Kareem as being one of the greatest or the greatest player of all time. Nobody did. It was Jordan, it was Magic, it was Bird, it was Bill Russell, it was Wilt, it was whoever, right? Kareem has gained traction over the years because people started to realize, oh crap,
shit, we can't catch this dude.
He won 6 titles and 6 MVPs.
Yeah.
He's the all-time leading scorer. He's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think LeBron may gain some more traction from that down the road.
You might be right, man, because people will be chasing him.
Yep.
Statistically, at least from an aggregate statistics, for sure. Okay, well then I know if we had the same 4, we had the same 3. I know you're going to have Stockton at 2, just like me, right? Yep. And this was the reason I texted you, and I didn't tell you why I was struggling with it, but I was like, man, Jonathan, man, I'm struggling with this list. And let me show you why I'm struggling with this list, because
I know.
This is a game where John Stockton had 28 assists. I just want to show you the first 3 because these are indicative of about 11,000 other assists that he had in his career.
Right.
This is what basketball looked like for the Utah Jazz. That's an assist. Watch this one. That's an assist.
Yep.
It looks different than Rondo. It looks different than Doncic. It looks different than even Jokic. It looks different than probably even Isaiah, although there's probably a little bit. It definitely looks different than who's number 1 on our list. I mean, look around. This is all about making the right decision. That was a nice finish. This is about making the right decision 8 billion times consecutively in a row for a million zillion games for a million zillion seasons, right? It's just always making the right simple play. And he made basketball very simple. And the argument, Jonathan, out there, and I know you've heard it 100 times, is like, well, he only had all those assists because of Karl Malone. But then people come right back and say, well, Karl Malone's only in the all-time scoring list because he had John Stockton. So you can't have it both ways. It's got to be, I would think, a little bit of both or a lot of both, being great players of all time.
So did Magic only have all those assists because of Kareem? No. It's just ridiculous. But here's my issue. And I had him a little bit lower initially, and then I couldn't take my eyes off the fact that he has 3,800 more assists than everybody else. Like, it's unbelievable. Think about that.
That's 10 assists a game for 380 games, which is almost 5 seasons.
Yeah. Now, how about this? He had 5 straight years where he averaged over 13 and a half assists a game. 5.
I just did, Jonathan, a great video. It actually, what is today? Wednesday? It comes out. Oh, sorry. This is going to be all jumbled up. So let's see, tomorrow, October 13th, on the Luca Nation Network, I did a video about Stockton having the two of the most unbreakable records in NBA history from a career standpoint. And I went into great detail about what would have had to have happened for Chris Paul to catch him, for LeBron to catch him, for Mark Jackson to have caught him, for Jason Kidd to catch Stockton from this point forward. On both records, we talked about it. I talked about just how much, how superior Stockton was on paper to all of his competitors, right? And like just some of the stuff, it's just mind-boggling. I had a list of like 40 different ways to analyze his career assists and things like that. The one thing I couldn't get away from, and the one thing that made it real easy to put him at number 2 instead of number 1 is he's not even close to the all-time assist per game career. He's not even close. Now, there's 2 reasons for that. Number 1, the guy that's number 1 that we're about to talk about was special, right? And the greatest passer of all time, in our opinion. But number 2 is the guy who's number 1 also didn't have those twilight years that Stockton did to bring that career assist per game average down, like we talk about. Like we talked about with Tim Duncan late in his career. Like, you know, he didn't have those years that weight him down like Rondo did and all these older guys did. So that's a big part of it. But consistency and durability, that's pretty much the theme of the video that if you guys watch it, it's a great video. 10.5 career assists per game, only 2 people, the guy we're about to talk about next, that has averaged more than 10 a game for their entire career. 9-time assist leader. He froze him out for almost a decade from leading the league in assists. 8 times he averaged 12 assists per game. As you said, I think 4 times he averaged over 13 a game. And then one season he averaged 14 a game, something like that.
2 years. He averaged over 14 a game. 1 year he averaged 14.7. 14.7.
Yeah.
By the way, that same year, I think he averaged like 17 points a game. So.
Look, man, with him, it's all about just making the game incredibly easy and always making the right. I mean, look at these passes. There's nothing special about the pass except the fact that he puts it exactly where he wants it. He's not seeing things other people don't see. He just puts it exactly where it needs to be.
I think, though, that if you're watching this video at all, like, it is incredibly boring. But if you notice, his mindset is, when you're open in a spot that you can make a shot, I'm throwing it to you perfectly.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
It's the same pass 2 times in a row.
Exactly.
It's the same play.
Yep.
It was a pick and roll left wing kick out to an open shooter, which is what basketball looks like now. Look at this.
When
Big Mark Eaton eating them up.
He can score, then
Mark Eaton eating them up. All right, that's number 2 on our list. Let's move on to number 1. I think everybody can probably figure out who number 1 is on our list. And if we didn't have him number 1, this would be, this video would have to be taken off the internet. So let's get him up here. It's the great one, right? It's Magic. I've got a good little video here. It's a 3-minute video, so we can let this whole thing run. Just Flair number 1 all time, probably, right?
Yes.
Maybe number 2 next to Jason Williams. Maybe number 2 next to your guy Jason Williams. Let me get this off. Magic's numbers, right? Again, retired early because of the HIV virus, so didn't get quite the durability and the longevity that Stockton did. Obviously, nobody else did. Number 1 or 2 all-time Flair, 6th all-time in only 12 seasons. So he's 6th all-time on the assist list in only 12 seasons. Let that sink in. He's ahead of LeBron right now, and he only played 12 seasons. 11.2 career assists per game, almost a full assist more than Stockton, who we just talked about as, one of the most unbreakable records of all time. Magic finished his career with 9 straight 10 or more assist seasons.
That's crazy.
He finished his career that way. And so for that reason, that kind of, bolsters and fluffs up his assists per game. But it's sad to think, well, what if he did have 7 more seasons? Would he be near Stockton? I don't know. Do you think he could have caught Stockton if he'd have kept playing?
Well, I don't. You tell me. I think, Magic's game wasn't based on athleticism, but it was, it wasn't like he was a terrible athlete, but it was, it wasn't based on that. And I think at 6'9", even when he came back from the HIV thing, they put him at the 4, right? And he was pretty effective. I mean, if he never contracts the virus and stays in the league, how many more years does he have?
Here's the deal.
He have 5 more years?
That's the issue, right? So he's let's say he's 6,000 behind. He's 5,800 and some change. Let's say he's a little bit less now. He's about 5,700 behind, right? Yeah. So he needs basically 6 if he's playing 70 games, he basically needs. No, he wasn't catching Stockton.
Well,
because he wasn't going to average 10 assists a game at age 36, 37, and 38, man. There's no way.
You wouldn't think so. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's, I don't think so. I don't think he catches Stockton. I just think it's a ridiculous record, but nonetheless, I think it's unquestionable he's the greatest passer ever for the different reasons that we've talked about. Not only Flair is great, but he made every pass, and you could throw it to him in the post. He could destroy you passing from the post. I mean, just did everything, man. And the single best transition passer in history.
The single best. I'm on the same page with you there. Do you think this is a great question, and please comment below if you disagree with that pass right there. It was absurd. Do you think he was, when I think of the greatest entertainers in the history of basketball, the first one that came along, let's throw Wilt out because he was 7'1", and although it was probably entertaining to watch him destroy and decimate little children, I think Pete Maravich was the first one that came to mind where entertaining was, for him, might have been more important than winning. I shouldn't say that, but that was the reason people liked to watch Pete Maravich. He was incredibly entertaining. He captivated the nation in college, and then it carried over into the NBA, not quite to the same level. But I think Magic took the baton from him. I don't think Doc was that way. I don't think George Gervin was that way. Moses Malone wasn't. Kareem wasn't. Magic came into the perfect setting at the perfect time in the perfect city with the perfect teammates to be the world's greatest athletic entertainer of all time to that point.
Yeah, and the most amazing part about that was, even though that is the case, and I agree, he still cared more about winning than anybody else, other than maybe Bird at the time.
He did, other than Bird and Jordan. I get it. He did, but he, man, it was just so different, man. Just
how he balanced it, man.
Yeah,
it was amazing to see because he wanted to put on a show. I mean, there's no question about it. And I guys that are a little bit younger probably not going to remember, but if you ever get a chance, even though the video quality is terrible, go back and watch mid-'80s All-Star games with Isaiah on the East and Magic on the West, and them running. There was always 1 to 2 segments of each of those games where it was like something crazy Isaiah did to push it up, kick to a shooter for a basket, and then Magic's flying back up the court. And would go like 8-10 trips in a row, back and forth. Frenetic, that was a lot of fun to watch back then for sure.
Yeah, he was special, man. Number one on my list, number one on your list. We had the exact same top 4. That's never happened. I don't know if that'll ever happen again. But
the bottom of our list wasn't far off. Outside of Chris Paul not being in my 10, which is inexcusable, I agree.
You got to get him in there. And then where were we with there was somebody, Doncic was – where was Doncic on yours? 6?
I had him 5th. I think you had him 6th. Yeah.
I had him 7.
Jokic in my list. I had him on my list.
Yeah. My deal with Doncic is it's just too soon. That's just not enough. There's not enough body of work. He's a 2018 rookie. I can't put him there yet, man. I just can't do it.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the skill of passing alone and just going.
I know. And that was part of the deal. And that's why I thought our list would be a lot more different because the criteria for this list that we put together was so much more nebulous. It was like it was ambiguous almost to the point where it was like, how much do you weight Flair? How much do you weight careers? How much do you weight their prime? How much do you weight their teammates and how they did it and what position they played? We didn't really make any rules about any of that stuff, and our lists were pretty same, especially at the top. So anyway, let us know in the comments what you guys think. Let us know in the comments if there's another list you'd like us to do. We've got some good ideas.
I have one.
Okay.
I'm throwing it out there to your viewers, and I want to see what they think about it. You and I have gone back and forth about creating a draft situation for all-decade teams, right? Let's not worry about a draft, okay? Let's pick decades. Let's say you take the 80s, I take the 90s, or whatever it is, right? We pick decades, and we come up with our top 8 rotation guys, and we match them up, and let's debate
in their prime
which team would win. Correct, exactly.
So, not a list at all. Maybe a mano-a-mano battle royale, something like that.
Yep.
There's another idea that we discussed that I think hit, a light bulb went off for both of us where we picked 2 players who are oftentimes compared throughout history. One particular pairing comes to mind, and then we randomly, you take one, I take one, and we don't get to choose which one we take. We just like draw or flip a coin or whatever, right? And then we just have to argue on behalf of one player versus the other.
Yep.
I'll give them a little spoiler alert. It was Kobe and Duncan. I could take both sides, and you could take. I'm sure could take both sides, and then we could argue, and then we could let people in the comments chime in, and then everybody could pick Kobe because they're already, they already made up their mind that it was Kobe. But it can be made. The argument can be made for either one of those. So that would be a good one. But there's a lot of other people like that right throughout history that are similarly situated. Shaq and Olajuwon is another one. Yep. Wilt and Russell is another one. I'll let you take Russell on that one.
No, I won't. I won't be involved in that. We'll let the viewers do that because
I'll have a different guest on to take Russell because I'm not. I've got to take
Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons would gladly.
Bill Simmons. Yeah. Well, it'll be between Wilt and Mobley and Evan Mobley. That's who Bill Simmons says is the next Bill Russell. Actually, he said he's the next Tim Duncan. So we'll see. Why don't we let him score 500 points in the league first, and then we can call him that. Anyway, as always, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. We don't take you for granted. We're right at an hour. That's usually about what these videos run. Hopefully, you guys enjoy these lists. We've got tons more great ideas, and I assure you, our list of ideas and topics and conversations is growing faster than our once a week videos that we're doing. But we sure are having a good time doing it. I'm learning a lot doing these videos. And getting a little bit more acclimated with the history of the NBA statistically and things like that. So appreciate you guys watching. Jonathan, anything else you got? Anything you want to say?
No, I'm having a blast. I look forward to it every week. And I know, people don't realize this because they weren't there, but it really is just like us riding to an AAU tournament. We're just having to be videoed. That's it.
It is. Hopefully they enjoy it. I don't know. We'll keep doing it as long as people keep listening and keep watching it. And so hopefully the topics are entertaining as well. It's always going to be basketball. We're not going to argue about soccer or football or baseball because we don't know anything about it. So we're going to argue about basketball. Thank you guys for watching. Find me and Jonathan every Tuesday on the Luca Nation Network at 4 p.m. Central Time. You'll also find PWCC Weekly Recaps on the Luca Nation Network YouTube and podcast channel on Mondays. And then a Michael Jordan, and you need to watch this, Jonathan, Michael Jordan Explore the Card episode every single Friday where I talk about a particular Michael Jordan basketball card from the 90s, and we take a deep, detailed dive into it like it's a work of art, which it usually is, on Fridays at 4 p.m. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you hadn't. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications. You don't miss any great videos like this one. Appreciate your time. Keep collecting. Stay positive in the hobby. And peace.